Guest is State Counsel and Lawyer John Sangwa. Good evening and welcome to Costa's Cross-Examination.
Good evening. I didn't know that I was coming for cross-examination. Yeah, thank you for the invitation.
Thank you. Well, we're now in session. Let's start with your decision, really, State Counsel, to step into the civic role. You've been in active legal practice for over 30 years. What really has inspired you to take this bold step towards national service?
Well, I think one has to go back some 35 years ago when I was admitted to the bar, and it coincided with the return to a multi-party system of government, and that is after 27 years of one-party rule. It was an exciting period because the economy had collapsed then, and we were full of optimism that the return to multi-party system of government was going to transform the country. And I believed that I had a role to play in that, and I did a number of things during that period. One of them was the fact that I spent almost 20 years at the University of Zambia teaching public law, and that was informed by the fact that any democratic system of government to thrive, it needed a good team of lawyers who understood constitutional law issues. And I spent my 20 years contributing in that respect. And then secondly, during that same period, we did establish an NGO called Legal Resources Foundation, which had branches all over the the provinces. I think then we had nine provinces. The idea was to educate people. A democracy cannot thrive if people are not enlightened. That was one of the second thing that I did. And over the last 35 years, I've done mostly public interest litigation. I don't think that there is a government that I have not sued. The only one that I think I didn't get a chance to sue was Kaunda's government. So every government from 1991, we have had to fight and tell them, stick to the Constitution, stick to the Constitution. Then at the end of the day, one has to take stock. What is the net effect? Is our democratic space better or worse off? And the conclusion is that we are far worse off than where we started off. There's been serious regression in terms of our democratic credentials that we started with in 1991. And it was also hoped that the return to a multi-party system was going to bring about improvement in the economic and social conditions of the people. And we are talking about 35 years later. There's been serious regression in terms of democracy. The economy is in decline. I can just give you an example. In 1991, when we made a transition to a multi-party system, our external debt stood at $7 billion. Zambia was the worst indebted country in sub-Saharan Africa. In fact, the IMF and the World Bank lent more money to Zambia than any other country in sub-Saharan Africa. But at the end of the day, we still emerged as one of the poorest countries in the world. We went through that period of Chiluba, and Chiluba preached the fact that we have to tighten our belts, which we did. And I think 2008, 2007, 2008, that $7 billion was forgiven. We didn't pay for it. So we were full of hope. And what are we looking at now? By 2021, we were now back in the same position. Our debt position was now back to even far exceeded what we had in 91. So what we are now looking at a debt of 12, 13 figures are different, but it is $14 billion. So then you ask yourself, what is the problem? Okay, we cleared the debt, then we ended up in debt again. And then on the democratic front, there's been no consolidation of democracy. In fact, there's been serious regression. I think you and I were talking earlier on. You asked me about the response to the movement. I mentioned to you to say some people are scared of giving their details because they don't know what is going to happen to their information. But that shouldn't happen in a democracy. People should be able to feel very, very free to express themselves. It reminds me to the period of one-party state. But the period of one-party state was different because we were under a state of emergency. So there's been a decline, both democratically and also economically, socially. Basically, we're looking at a total collapse of the
We'll come
country.
to discuss those in more detail. But your concept of a movement for national renewal, one can describe it as a fairly new phenomenon because this is not a political party.
That's correct.
Explain to us how you intend this to work, because on your announcement, obviously the public says John Sangwa has joined the presidential race, and I've seen lists now coming up. If not 23 yesterday, I saw 32 Zambians.
That's right.
Everybody throwing them. Is this about you just wanting to be president, and now people are confused which political party is he going to stand on? Has he launched a political party? How will the movement for national renewal work? What is it? How does it work?
Okay, the conclusion, first of all, like I gave you my 30-year history. You have to take stock. What is the progress? The progress is zero. We have regressed in everything. Then I reached a stage I had to make a decision. Do I continue litigating? Do I continue doing the same thing that I've done over the last 35 years? And I concluded, no, I can't do that. Why then don't I pivot and get directly involved in the governance of the country? And that is the decision I've made. And that is one of the things that I said was, I'm ready to serve. Okay, that was the only statement I've made. I'm ready to serve. But I issued a statement based on our experience. No single person can transform this country. And the essence of the movement is to get this message clear to Zambians. We have to make a choice. Either we continue on the same path or we change course. And it's not just a question of one group of people changing course, it is all of us. Now, we have lost opportunities in the last 60 years. From 1964 to date, we have lost those opportunities. And that is the fault of both the leaders and the citizens. We have failed ourselves. So we now have a collective duty to make a decision. Do we go on the same path or we change course? So the idea of the movement is to be able to bring people to this realization that the fate of Zambia or the future of Zambia or the renewal of Zambia is not the job of one man. It is the job of each and every one of us as Zambians deciding to say, you know what, we have lost opportunities in 60 years, let's now turn a new leaf where we can march together.
But for the sake of those, for example, who'd want to join this movement and they're watching this evening, what do you really mean 10 months before an election that you're ready to serve?
Yes.
And you're saying by the 31st of December this year, you're looking at mobilizing 1 million Zambians as supporters of this movement, and you are actually encouraging them to turn up and get their voters' cards. So again, what does serving mean? You reach 1 million voters, then what?
Then we decide what to do. We decide. But first of all, let me clarify one thing. There is this notion that service to the country is a preserve of one person. No, it's not. We all have a duty. It's not even a choice. It's a duty to be of service to the country. Now, we'll have to serve differently. Okay? You make your own determination. At what level are you going to serve? I have served this country for the last 35 years as a legal practitioner. I have now decided to say I would like to serve in another capacity. You too ought to decide, what is your contribution to this country? How are you serving this country? Okay? There is always this notion that service is a preserve of a few people. No. Each and every one of us, we have an obligation, and this is clearly set out in Article 43 of the Constitution. Before you can make any demands on the Republic, what have you done for the Republic? Okay? Now, the formation of the movement, our formation of the movement is in response to our civic responsibility as a citizens. Because I can't go on complaining, oh, things are bad, things are bad, things are bad. Then I've said, okay, we have complained enough. And that's why we have come up with this idea of a movement. And the idea of raising 1 million is based on the recognition that, first of all, it's a new concept. I need to ascertain that people indeed buy into the idea. Now, it's not something that you can go into it alone. Now, the mark of 1 million, for me, that would be evidence that Zambians want to turn
So
change
if
direction.
you don't reach 1 million, then you abandon the cause?
Well, we have to look at a number of reasons why we have not reached 1 million. Okay, it's not. But by the way, I can tell you that the response that we have had, I haven't heard anybody say we can't reach 1 million. But we have had challenges. For example, right now we live in an environment where I don't think I can have a rally, for example. I can't. Or I can't even have a town hall. I can't. So, I mean, we saw, was it 2 days ago, where a church gathering was displaced. And these people were, I mean, people even being denied the opportunity to pray. Now, what more political arrangement? Okay? So we have to work within these constraints. Okay? Now, you asked about what will happen if we don't reach 1 million. One, we have to look at the reasons why we have not reached 1 million. I gave you the example whereby most people are scared. I've had people, for example, say, you know what, I like the idea, but you know what, I can't put my name there. Why? I'm a civil servant. This is a non-partisan platform. Okay? Others have said, no, I still do business with government. I don't want to be identified and then I'll be penalized. Now, you can't have that kind of arrangement in any democratic system. Citizens should be free to be able to express themselves. Now, if we do not manage to reach that 1 million, but we are certain that we will. We'll have to look at the reasons why.
Despite those technicalities you mentioned, others have also described this idea or movement as only for the elite. And then when you say you're discussing ideas, Lusaka is not Zambia, so you're not on the ground. When you feature on radio and you speak constitutional law, you think that is Zambia. How inclusive is this movement to target the rural citizen on what people say on the ground?
That's right. If you read the message, one of the things that we did was to recognize the fact that each and every person has to get involved, and we have called upon Zambians. First of all, it's a voluntary arrangement, okay? And I can tell you, everything we have done so far has been on a voluntary basis. Okay, we have not collected money from anyone. It is Zambians taking out their own money from their pocket to be able to put in this. We have had some of these messages translated into Zambian languages. I'm sure you may have seen a few. And one of the things that we're asking people is, yes, you have a brilliant idea. What can you do? Okay? What can you do? That's what we are challenging Zambians, because it's not my responsibility alone, okay? And the response has been phenomenal. We have had people, there are already people on the ground, by the way, in provinces and districts already mobilizing. And we have made it clear that even if we wanted, we wouldn't be everywhere. And it is also, I think, a mischaracterization to believe that there are no educated people in villages. They are educated people. They are there. They're smart people. And that is why we are saying we won't give you solutions from Lusaka. We are challenging you wherever you are, Kaputa, Shangombo, wherever, mobilize yourselves. Okay? What we have done in the last 60 years is to believe that change should come from Lusaka and filter down. We are saying no, change should come from the bottom, okay, to go up. That is what we're doing. So we have done translations of the messages that we have, and that has continued through various platforms. I think earlier, before we started talking about it, we have had responses to say, what about those in rural areas who have no internet? We are creating a platform for them to be able to express themselves. What about those without smartphones? We're also creating a platform for them, okay? And we are challenging people in towns where you say, okay, if you think there's a problem in the villages, what are you going to do about it? It's not for me. And other people have come, I've had people come to me and say, Mr. Sangwa, why don't you translate this message? And I say, I can't do everything. I can't. Why, since you have seen the need, why don't you get that message translated yourself and things are happening.
You described this as a people movement, and
Yes.
earlier when you just launched it, again, for the sake of clarity, there were issues to say people are being asked to contribute, whether it was 100 or 200 kwacha, and politics as they may be, they're saying you're getting money from people, and this money will be squandered. Why are you asking for money and things like that? Let's get clarity on this.
Yes, let me clarify. Let me clarify. One of the things that we said, if you look at the 10-point plan, 10-point statement we issued, we said Zambians should be able to fund their own democracy. Right now, all the elections, I mean, you have to ask the existing political parties where they get their money from, okay? Because the Constitution required us as a country to enact a political parties act. That act was going to require political parties to disclose the sources of their funds. That law has never been enacted. PF didn't do it, and UPND has not done it. Okay? Now, the idea was to avoid foreign influence in our election. The idea was to prevent buying an election. I'm a lawyer. Okay, even in the absence of a statute, I have taken oath to uphold the Constitution, and we have given out the message to say, if Zambians you want to change in the course or in the direction of the country, you have to fund this particular exercise. We are not collecting any money right now, although we have had, I can tell you, we have had more people offering to give us money than to register.
Are you asking people to contribute?
No, we haven't reached there yet. We haven't reached there yet. What our primary focus right now is to get the numbers to reach that 1 million. Okay? After that 1 million, then the next thing will be to raise money.
So between October till December, the activities of the movement are basically just mobilization to reach 1 million.
That's correct. We're not talking about money. We're not talking about money. There are people that have offered money. We have said, keep the money. Keep the money. Once we morph into a political party, then we will ask for your money. And that money will be received, not the cash, by the way. That money has to go in the banking system. Okay, and if it has to be any disbursement, the disbursement will equally be made through our banking system. There will be no cash, and in any case, we also hope to set limits to what an individual can contribute. Okay, we don't want any one individual to feel that he had a bigger stake in the movement. I gave an example, and I said, well, even if we have 1 million, when we have 1 million Zambians, each Zambian contributing, say 100 kwacha, that is 100 million kwacha. In dollar terms, is 4 million kwacha. And I think that is more than enough to run a campaign in this country. So we're not worried about, but let me clarify this, we're not worried about raising the money. That we are sure we will. The most important thing is to raise the numbers, because this whole process requires a change in mindset.
You're not worried about where the money will come from, but just like you said earlier, an election or ideas are hijacked by he who pays the higher price.
Yes.
So will you restrict on who donates, especially those with specific business or other interest?
Well, yeah, the general discussion is that we have to set a limit. We can't just allow anybody to be able to buy into the movement. We would want even the lowest guy to be able to feel that he has a stake in the movement. Okay, that is basically the premise on which we are working on. And we are talking about a transparent system. Okay, even if, and in fact, this particular money that we intend to raise will not be to buy people beers or buy people chitenges. We don't intend to do that, because that's what we have done in the last couple of years. Where are we? So we are talking about renewal. Renewal requires us to do things differently. We will not buy people chitenges. We will not buy booze. We will not bribe people. The money that will be raised will be purely for campaign purposes, logistics, and paying those people that are directly involved in the campaign.
So when you talk campaign, clearly it is that once the 1 million mark is crossed,
yes,
then the movement has to go now towards an election.
That's correct.
Are we at a point then of talking about that strategy yet? Because last week we saw you issue another statement,
yes,
coming together with Madam Dolly Kabanda, who clearly has stated her intentions for presidency.
Yes.
It's public knowledge.
Yes.
So this is what seems to be confusing many Zambians
Yes.
in terms of how this roadmap will be. If you allow me just to teeter on most of the rumor mongering going around, is that why haven't these guys just joined an existing political party, or probably they're positioning themselves to hijack the PF because there's a leadership. There's so much being said right now. So again, I'll sound like a broken record. This partnership into the movement with people who've already declared presidents or presidential intentions, how will it work?
Well, first of all, one of the things that's why it's non-partisan, right? It's not a political party. It's a non-partisan arrangement. That is why I was able to embrace my dear sister, Dolika Banda. I call her my big sister, okay? I would like to say that I think she's one of the bravest women that we have in this country. And she hasn't hidden our intention. But right now, we have joined forces will be worked out. That is what has happened. So we are partners in raising that 1 million people. Once we reach that, then that decision will be made. But there is one thing. I'm not worried about whatever people are saying. But we are united in one thing. Love of the country. That is what is uniting us. Okay, let me make this point. There are a lot of people that have said, oh, we are elitist, what. Do you know what? We are not elitist. Okay, we love this country. And even the way she was attacked and bashed, that was completely unnecessary. She's a patriot. She doesn't need, she can quietly, comfortably live a life. And I can also do that. I've left my practice. The reason it's not about power is it's about just being human. How can a country with so much in terms of resources and yet be so poor? And I've been to school. I've been privileged to go to school. Okay? Now, I think it would be wrong for me to sit idle and do nothing and just go on criticizing. What has brought us together is our love for the country. Now, of course, people are going to jump, PF, what? We have our own story to tell. Our story is 1 million people movement by 31st December. Then we decide what to do next.
There are those, like you've said, that are agreeing with your message.
Yes.
And probably even those with political parties, you're saying you're speaking the same language, patriotism for the country.
Yes.
The other school of thought is that then you are dividing an already divided opposition. And I don't know if you've heard this cry, for those saying there's so much poverty and the high cost of living, we need a united opposition. So such movements further divide and give the UPND due advantage. So why not just join a united opposition?
You cannot have, I have known, you know what, I've been in this political arrangement for many years. First of all, I can take you back to 1996. Okay, in 1996, when Kaunda got barred from contesting the election, okay, there was an attempt to bring the opposition together. It never worked. It never worked. But the point is that you cannot have a marriage of convenience. It won't last. Or what we are saying, that's why we have a 10-point plan. I know what you are asking for is that, do you agree with this 10-point plan? And if you do, then we have something in common. Okay, and in this case of my sister, Dolika Banda, when she read the 10-point plan, she said, I'm into this. I agree with everything you have said. Now, here is another problem. Our focus is not so much about, it is more than winning an election. It is also about what are you going to do for this country? This country isn't in a mess. This country is in trouble. We are in trouble. So it's not just seeking office for the fun of it.
But are you able to do something about cleaning up the mess if you're not in the corridors of authority to make those decisions?
Well, I've tried for 35 years. That's what I've been doing. Okay? And even going to court, for example. Even now, if there was, here we are talking about amending the Constitution 10 months before the election. Who does that? Okay? Who does that? That's not normal. It's not right. You don't do that. Okay? And so these are the things I've taken so many cases. Those cases they read very well for law students to review those cases. But what do they translate to on the ground? Zero. Okay, and that is why, yes, the notion you have asked is correct. That is why I've always believed that you do not need to be in public office in order to make change. I have done that for the last 35 years, and I'm saying to myself, what is the achievement? So what is the outcome?
So back to the question,
yes.
This movement will not find itself eventually riding on a political platform after December.
What do you mean by that? Will not find itself riding on
a political platform? On the question of why are you not uniting with the opposition
on another platform, on a
political party,
on another political party's platform?
Because this is not.
Yes, but the idea is that come to a 31st December, we reach that 1 million people, we will morph into a political party. That is the intention. Now, right now, we have had other people. We are in discussions with other political parties to come and join us. Now, once we join, but it's not the joining based on convenience. You cannot just say, oh, let's join so that we prevent UPND from winning. No, that cannot be the strategy. Okay, you have to be united in ideas, in convictions, in values, because that's what we have had in this country.
How then do you intend to see this work? Because we're already seeing the historical problems you talk about,
yes.
The UDA failure, the PF and the
yes.
UPND. Now you had UCA, there's Tonse,
yes.
and you can already see, babies that are dying before they're even birthed.
Exactly.
So how clear are you that then, with the 1 million supporters, because this is what they want to hear this
yes.
evening.
Yes.
How will it work?
Well, you know what? First of all, when you have 1 million voters, 1 million supporters, right? That is already a sign of confidence. Okay? That is already an endorsement of your idea, that you already have a footing in the political arena. Now, I know I've said this before, there are others who are braver than I am, who actually wake up and form a political party. And we decided to say, no, let's do that. First of all, I said, I want to serve. Now, how do I know that, in fact, people even want me to serve them anyway? I have to have a basis. I've offered myself. Now, proof of that lies in our ability to raise that 1 million people. Okay? So that is the premise on which it is founded. Now, when you have a base of 1 million supporters, it already puts you in a stronger position, in the sense that that is what the transformation we're talking about. It means that we have a message. The message of renewal has already been accepted, embraced by 1 million people.
1 million, supporters register. What will be the basis then of going forward? Many of these alliances have cracked on the basis of who becomes president. And you're saying, I'm ready to serve. You are just saying serve for patriotism, not as president. But this is where the cracks are. So what will the consideration be? Will it be regional? Will it be on the number of MPs these people bring onto the table as a political party? Will it be on the basis of it? Because these are the things we hear. I've got more experience. In these alliances, people have said, look, I've got more experience than any of you, or our political party is the biggest, it's got more structures, our political party has got more MPs.
Yes, I've heard that.
The ideas
I've heard that.
Or manifestos really don't matter. Some even begin to share cabinet positions.
I've heard this talk about experience. Don't you like experience and so forth? My answer is very simple. Where has that experience taken us in 60 years? What is the outcome of that political experience that people market? Where has that taken us? Our country is in the toilet. Okay, so really, when you talk about experience, it is very difficult to convince anyone, because if that political experience was of any value, this country should not be where it is. Okay, so that is why I have a problem with people who claim, oh, I have the experience. But if you're part of the process, the political process, you are part of the people that created the mess. Okay? Does it mean that we can't learn anything from you? Of course we can learn. Okay? In fact, we learn more from failure than success. Yeah. Now the point is this. That is why we're calling this a movement for national renewal. Now, renewal doesn't mean you continue doing the same things. It's not renewal. Renewal means that you have to try and do things differently. And that is why we are saying, for example, on the issue of funding, we are saying we want Zambians to fund it. Okay? That is one different way of doing things. For example, I can confirm to you that we have had offers from the traditional funders of politics in this country. And we have said, no, we're not interested.
For the sake of the public, just quickly run us through what sort of sums up what you're calling your 10-point plan.
First of all, the starting point is this. First of all, we want Zambians to understand that this country is in trouble. Okay? We are in trouble. Now, that is the first thing. You see, forget about all these statistics that these guys are peddling. The truth of the matter is we are in trouble. We are worse off than we were in 1964. We are worse off in comparison to our neighboring countries. Okay? Now, I've asked somebody, let me just throw in some figures. Our population growth. Okay, somebody told me to say, well, you can't talk about population. But we have to be truthful. Our population is growing at nearly 4% per annum. And in the meantime, our economic growth is about 5.8%. Can somebody explain how we're going to get out of this mess? In addition to that, we have an external debt of well in excess of $15 billion. Right now, if you checked in the last budget, we are now spending money on debt servicing, which is more than what we are spending on education and health combined. Now, these are things that people should be aware of. Now, until and unless you accept that we are in trouble, that is the starting point. Nobody goes to the hospital unless they accept that they are sick.
And the movement in this plan has solutions to these challenges?
Get Zambians, first of all, to understand the enormity of the challenges. Okay? Once we reach consensus in that, because if people don't accept that we're in trouble, then there's no point. Okay? If somebody is in denial that he's sick, there is nothing that you can do to help them. But Zambians need to accept the fact that where we are, we should not be where we are. Now, once we accept that...
Is the debt restructuring not a solution to this debt burden that you talk about, the current debt restructuring?
My brother, it's not a solution. What you have just done is to be able to just push the debt forward. Okay? But you're not addressing the issue. You still have that debt. But even if you take out the debt equation, right, the economy is still not growing at the same pace as the population. So these are the discussions that we should be having. For example, if we have a population growth of about nearly 4%, your economy, for it to make sense, your economy should grow at least 10%. We're not reaching those numbers.
So, State Council, what other yardstick then?
Fine. First of all, yes. The second point.
What other yardstick then should a country like ours globally be using to measure growth, productivity, and really performance if you are trashing the statistics? I mean, credible sources, Bloomberg, IMF themselves, Standard & Poor's, saying that we've had the fastest, growing GDP on the continent, the best performing currency in the last, season across the world, projecting that by February of next year we should be hitting around 7.8%.
7.8%.
And the president is busy cutting ribbons, opening industry, and so on, and he's saying it's Quenyu after Quenyu.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you ask the common man on the ground whether he agrees with you. Okay. These are numbers, but how do they translate on the ground? Zero impact. Okay. So these are good. I mean, also when you read these foreign publications, you must also be mindful. Who are the readers? The readers is not a common Zambian. Okay, this is meant for foreign consumption.
But historically, we've always used that as a benchmark to measure.
But the real benchmark is what is the effect of our policies on the common man. That should be the real benchmark. Okay, you ask an average Zambian, is his life today better today than it was in 2021? Okay, I don't think that there is any Zambian that would say that. Okay, and even the factors, the data on the ground doesn't support that position. So we need, first of all, we're not apportioning blame on anyone, right? From 90s, this mess has been created over a period of time. We now need to reach a stage whereby we should be talking about solutions. Okay. Now, the other point that we talked about in our 10-point plan, we are saying, first of all, we must be truthful. The government must tell the truth, and the people should be ready to hear that truth, even if it is painful, because that's the only way you can build a country. Okay? No lies, no populist, no fake promises. Just tell it as it is. For example, we had this particular situation after 91. President Chiluba was very truthful. I said, guys, we're in trouble. We have to tighten our belts. And no Zambian ever resisted that.
Hasn't the current administration said so? That the president actually described the debt as
what?
As a boa constrictor or a snake or a python, he says. And he said we needed to tighten our belts.
Yeah, but the point is this. The truth of the matter is people's expectations have not been met, and I do not see any light at the end of the tunnel. Things will get worse. Now, one of the problems that you have, first of all, this is another point that we raise. It is not possible. It is impossible. I'm going to state this categorically. It is impossible to grow this country without the rule of law. We have no rule of law. It is impossible to grow this country.
How can you say that, State Council,
very simple, very
tonight,
simple,
as one who upholds the Constitution,
yes,
and the UPND came on that premise to restore the rule of law and order, and they've done a quenny on that as well.
Let me give you an example. Rule of law. What happened to those people who went to worship? What happened?
We've seen a statement of rebuttal from,
doesn't matter.
From State House
it shouldn't have happened. It happened on his watch. It shouldn't have happened. Okay? The Constitution guarantees us the right of freedom of conscience, freedom to worship, and people gathered to do something very basic, to worship. And what happened? Okay, you're talking about rule of law. If you look at the manifesto of the UPND, they promised that we'll repeal the Public Order Act. Have they? They have not. In fact, they even said before the repeal, there will be responsible application of the Public Order Act.
There's been that process in the People's Gathering Bill. What seems to be the problem why this cannot see the light of day?
I have no idea. I have no idea. But the point is that we can only talk about the law that exists. Okay, the law that exists is one which is the Public Order Act. The second point that I've said, you cannot develop this country if you have no respect for your own constitution. These are the challenges.
They argue that there are more freedoms now.
Where?
They brought in a rapporteur from the UN to come and do investigations on issues of democracy. They say people can trade in markets and bus stations without being harassed by the basis of which color of a political party they support. People are not being harmed, as it were, in the PF administration. Those are the things they're underscoring. Plus,
my brother, I have a very simple question for you. Sorry, you're supposed to be asking, cross-examining me.
Yes,
but let me break the rules and ask you.
Unfortunately, I may not be able to answer.
That's right. And I said, but I can simply put it from 2021 to date, which political party has held any major or significant rally in this country? Which political party? Okay, so I mean, but first of all, who grades himself? Huh? Who grades himself? I was a lecturer for 20 years. I know. I set the exam. I grade you. In this case, it is supposed to be the people grading, telling this government that you have performed, not you yourself claiming that you have performed. Okay, that in itself is an anomaly. It's abnormal. It doesn't happen in real. It shouldn't happen. We, the voters. Okay, first of all, I'll tell you one thing. If this government had performed, you know what? I wouldn't be seated here.
The president has openly said it that Zambian citizens, inclusive of yourself, those in the opposition, civil society, should get a blank paper and put down all the promises and begin to tick and grade like you're saying. And so he says, if you are grading, what better thing are you going to do? He's delivered free education. He's reopened Mopani and sorted out the KCM debacle. He's increased the CDF allocation. It's now 40 million Kwachape constituency. So again, in the promises and manifesto of what they embarked on, the president believes that they're doing so far, so fine.
Okay, I'm a voter, right? I'm a voter. I voted for this government. Okay, and I'm telling you, they haven't delivered. If they are delivered, you and I would not be seated
Haven't they
here.
delivered free education?
My brother, can I ask you something? How many of the ministers have their children in those government schools? Because I went to school with children of ministers. In my time, I sat on the same desk with the children of parastatal chiefs, the wealthiest people, members of the Central Committee. We sat in the same classes. When I went to university, I've said this before, Kaunda's daughter was my intake mate in first year. How many of these ministers actually send their children to those government schools? Nobody's talking about that. These are just, these are the lies we talk about.
But is that the basis of grading?
Of course,
free education has not been delivered?
Of course. Why would you feed me something that you can't take yourself? Why would you feed me something that you can't take yourself? If it is that good, if the education is that good, it is that free, why haven't you? Why have these ministers, PSAs, and all these guys? Why haven't they taken them to those schools?
Well, it's on the basis of affordability, I presume.
It's what?
For the affordability for those that
This is a racket on the poor. The free education is a racket on the poor. Okay? How do you have you even examined the student-teacher ratio that is there? In my time, the student-teacher ratio was 35 pupils per teacher.
So isn't free education a good thing? Isn't bringing back meal allowances a good thing?
My brother, you have to look at this practical thing. What is the real impact of these things? These are flags that you are waving, but what is the real impact on the ground? Okay, the idea is not. I mean, I've tested what free education is. I know it doesn't. Whatever I experience is nowhere close to what we are seeing. This is a racket. These are lies that they're giving to people. But
obviously the population then and now has grown.
That's where the problem is, because that is what we started talking about, in the sense that our population has grown faster than the rate at which our economy has grown. As a result, the infrastructure is not matching. There's a mismatch. These are the challenges that we're talking about, and everything has literally collapsed. Okay? They can give you all these statistics, but ask an average person. Okay, why would you, for example, buy somebody a chitenge during an election campaign to get the vote? Okay, because you have succeeded in impoverishing people. What the solution is to enable people to be able to buy their own chitenges as and when they feel like. The solution is to empower people to buy their own booze as and when they feel like. They don't need to be buying booze and chitenges during election campaigns. In fact, it is an insult to an average Zambian. That shouldn't be happening.
Let's get to the elephant in the room.
Yes.
The Technical Committee on the Constitution Amendments. Bill 7 seemingly is back again. I have before me here terms of reference. As a constitutional lawyer of so many years, we've heard these debates the last 2 weeks, whether there's legality in the formation of this technical committee using Article 92, whether the terms of reference and the existence of this lax legal framework and so on. What is your stance on this?
It's a very sad development. It's a very sad development, and this is one of the issues that we have talked about. That people are very narrow-minded, especially this government, in the sense that they don't look at the implications of this. No serious investor will come to this country if a government does not respect its own constitution. And that is what we are seeing. Okay? The starting point is this. First of all, if we go back, this idea emanates from the decision of the Constitutional Court. If you read that particular, the decision of the Constitutional Court, the court makes it clear that you government, you have no powers to amend the Constitution. That authority is vested in the people. If there has to be any decision to amend the Constitution, that decision should be actuated by the people. The need to amend the Constitution must be demanded by the people, not by the politicians. Okay? Nobody has done it. There is no data that suggests that Zambians asked for these changes. There is no data. This is a political decision.
How have we done it in the past? Has it been people-driven?
Let me go back to 91. 91, right? People cried for a return to a democratic system of government, right? That was a people's movement to say we don't want this system of government. Okay, and the government accepted that. That new political dispensation required a new constitutional order. That is how we came with the 1991 Constitution. 1991 was a compromise because MMD threatened to boycott the election because UNIP alone determined that constitution, which was a commission which was headed by Professor Mvunga. MMD threatened to say we're not going to take part. As a compromise, they said to facilitate the election of 1991, let's reach a compromise. But the understanding, the popular understanding going back to 1991 was that this is just a compromise. A proper constitution will be done. That is how Mwanakatwe was appointed in, that would be about around 1993. That Mwanakatwe thing was botched by Chiluba. Instead of having a full-fledged constitutional review, Chiluba decided to amend that. Okay? When President Mwanawasa came to say, oh, by the way, that commitment to amend, to bring in a new constitution was never completed. It was aborted. That is how President Mwanawasa appointed the Mungomba Constitution Commission. But as we know, President Mwanawasa did not see that process. That process collapsed under President Arabi. When President Sata came, he said we need to finish that process, which we started in 91. Then President Sata put together that particular commission. In 2016, that process was completed in the sense that the bill was taken to the National Assembly. Both UPND and PF agreed on the constitution as it stands. There was also a referendum, by the way, if you remember, in 2016. That referendum was rejected, meaning that we have the Bill of Rights as it stands and we have the Constitution as it is.
Based on the history you've given,
yes,
is the Amendment number 2 of 2016 as the Constitution representative of all this where we're coming from?
Of course.
And is it a good Constitution for our country?
Of course. It is a far much better piece of legislation. What we should be talking about is a far much better Constitution than we have ever had. No Constitution is ever perfect, by the way, but in comparison to what we have had, it's the best deal we have. What we should be talking about, for example, if you can just allow me to explain this, what we should be talking about is to implement some of the missing pieces. For example, we shouldn't be talking about amendment. We should be talking about enacting legislation. For example, political parties bill, act to govern political parties. There should also be a law to be passed to make sure that there is equitable distribution of wealth. Okay, articles in the Constitution, if you look at Articles 253 to 257, it provides that there should be equitable distribution of wealth, meaning that, for example, there should be a law to be able to regulate, to say, all these provinces that are rich in minerals, okay, to provide for a scheme such that these provinces benefit from the minerals that are being generated in their respective provinces. That is the law that should have been put in place.
Just as a rider, didn't we attempt this in 2016 when we wanted to have executive mayors and provincial parliaments, like it is done elsewhere in South Africa, where budgets now are localized with local government.
No, I mean, what you're talking about is devolution. Even the actual devolution is crazy. Nothing has been implemented. Okay? Our constitution is very clear. If you look at the back of the constitution, there are functions of the central government. There are functions of the local authorities. This government does not respect that distinction. The role of the central government is simply to make sure that local authorities are adequately funded. Okay? What is happening now, central government is still trying to plan for these institutions, which is wrong. Okay? What is required is to empower the local authorities. They know their needs, they know what their challenges are, and they know the solutions to their challenges. Okay? Those are the things we should be implementing.
Despite these calls, despite the oasis for some civil society and church members saying this should not happen, tomorrow, Monday, the 27th, this technical committee sets off to work. I'm looking at the scope of work and deliverables under these terms of reference. Facilitate nationwide consultations. They will do this simultaneously in 10 provinces within 10 days, conduct a technical and legal review relevant to constitutional provisions, draft proposed constitutional amendments, draft a report on the overall findings of the technical committee, and ensure all recommendations are guided by the principles of democracy, inclusivity, and national unity. They need to deliver a report by the 26th of November.
That's crazy. That's insane.
The Attorney General says, there's nothing
this
wrong.
This is a scam.
There's nothing wrong with that if
there is
the issues are very clear.
There is everything wrong, right? It's crazy. This is a scam, okay? No responsible government will initiate that. If you go back to all the commissions, the government never set up a timetable for delivery. The government never go back to Chona Commission, Mvunga Commission, Mwanakatwe Commission, all the commissions. They would never set the timetable. This is a scam.
But surely there should be timelines.
No. When you appoint the commission, it is the commission to decide. Okay? It is for the commission to decide. That's what has happened all along. The reason is this. They will meet various challenges as they go. Right? This is just a formality. It's a scam. It's a scam. The outcome is already predetermined.
What do you think is the predetermined?
The outcome is already predetermined. You don't set such a timetable. This is just a matter of fulfilling a what? This is just fulfilling the obligation, but the real substantive work won't happen.
Do you see a situation, because I think this is where the argument is, if we are to have inclusivity, if we are to have people-driven amendments, has this committee and the terms of reference allowed for new submissions from the public other than this that we're seeing in here, delineation of constituencies, promotion and effective participation of women, youth, by-elections, number of nominated MPs. Is there room in this for people to bring something else on board?
No, there isn't. There's no room. That's why you have the terms of reference. But the interesting point is, who decided those terms of reference? How many Zambians were consulted in arriving at those terms of reference? None.
Can you consult everyone?
Of course, because because this is not a party constitution. Even a party constitution, you consult the members. This is it's a sacred document. This is the foundation of who we are as a republic. No single individual, no political party, no president has the authority to alter the constitution. None whatsoever.
Why do you think then the UPND administration seems to be in a hurry to enact this?
Well, they want to win the election. They want to. This has everything to do with election written over it.
Yeah,
and any government that is, this is actually a contradiction. If they believe that they have done kwenyu, why would you be rushing through a constitutional amendment? Okay? But in any case, who has asked for these changes? Who? Who in Zambia asked for these changes? Who?
You in previous engagements have spoken about the issue of delimitation. Again, the argument has been that the ECZ is the one following a census to clearly state out issues of delimitation. And I think from the last debates on the floor of Parliament, there was a report of 2019. And there's this argument being pushed. Even on this platform, I was interviewing the Justice Minister, that some constituencies are so vast and the
My
aspect
brother,
of...
that is crazy.
Let's hear your argument on this.
That is crazy. People don't understand the distinction between delimitation and increasing the number of seats, right? Delimitation has everything to do with a ratio between a member of parliament and the people in the constituency. It has nothing to do with the size of the constituency. It has everything to do with representation. Okay?
But doesn't our constitution say we will delimitate on the basis of even geography?
Yes, but you don't have to add the numbers. You don't. What it means is that, for example, let's take right now, we have 156 constituencies, right? So what the limitation means is we don't increase the number of constituencies. What we do, we alter the boundaries. Because you can't move people, what you do, you adjust the boundaries. So that, for example, if you had people, say, in Kanyama constituency, voting under being under Kanyama constituency, then some of the boundary will be adjusted so that those who are previously under Kanyama constituency can move into another constituency, right? Because that constituency has fewer people than the other.
Not cutting Kanyama in two.
No, but no. That's what it means. So that what you have is equal representation. Let me give you an hypothetical example. If you have 20 million people, just as an example, and you have 100 constituencies, right? The concept of delimitation means roughly that the size of each constituency in terms of population should be around 100,000 or I think if my math is correct, 100. You take the 20 million, you divide by 100. I think you come up with about roughly 200,000 people, right? So you have to make sure that on average, every constituency has plus or minus 200 people in that constituency. That's what the limitation is all about. It has nothing to do with increasing the number. It has nothing to do with the size. It has nothing to do with increasing the number of constituencies. In fact, it's crazy because you are in debt. What do you want to increase the number of seats?
But
that's an expense.
It's talking about ensuring fair, equitable, balanced representation and distribution of
resources. That's correct. That's correct. Okay? That is what is supposed to happen. You change the boundaries so that there is equal distribution in terms of representation. That's what the limitation is all about. Okay? It has nothing to do with the size. That's a scam. That's another scam altogether. That's a lie. What it has everything to do is to make sure that every MP, if they are on average, every MP should be able to represent plus or minus 100,000 people. There is no reason, for example, for one MP to represent 200,000 people and another one has 50,000 people. That is what the limitation is supposed to correct. Not increasing the number of seats. It has nothing to do with the size of the constituencies. Nothing. That's a lie.
So what about issues to do with effective participation of women and youth?
It's already there in the law. It's already there in the law. The president or whoever, whatever appointing authority is there. There is an obligation, I think if I remember correctly, should be Article 259. It imposes those obligations already to be able to do that. Everything here that is in this document, these are all lies. They're all lies.
What are we then trying to cure? For example, in this thing, transitional and statutory mechanisms with a view to ensure predictability and clarity in the term of office of all elected representatives. Just to go further, I think there's this proposal that then MPs should continue to coincide with an
but that's crazy.
What are we trying to cure?
But this is crazy. You see, we had this problem in 2020.
When minister stayed in office.
Yes, I took the case to court. Okay, and the court clarified that issue has already been resolved. It's a non-issue. The court said no. When your term of office, when National Assembly is dissolved, you cease to be minister. You become an ordinary person. You don't continue. And that's why ministers were forced to pay back the money. I took that case to court. Okay, so the issue is settled. It's settled, and that is why when you have a constitution, it is drafted by human beings, and it's not a perfect document. That is why we have a quote of judges who do nothing but simply study the constitution. That issue has already been clarified. So that is all another lie.
So what then is the purpose or beauty in extending the life of members of parliament?
Well, it is basically to favor the ruling party. That's what it is. Okay? Remember, what it is that this is just a ruse. The point is this. You can let's take, for example, you're a minister, right? The implication is that if that law goes ahead, right, you continue in office until election day, which means that you have access to all your benefits as minister during that period. And that already gives you an advantage. You will be contesting an election as a minister. That gives you an advantage against your competitors. But the current system is that when National Assembly is dissolved, only two people remain in office, the president and the vice president. All of them, they stop occupying their offices. That's the current system, which is fairer. Okay, so all these things.
Your learned brother was here 2 weeks ago saying there are vacuums in the office of the Attorney General, for example, when there's transition of government.
What?
There's no legal government advisor. So their push for receive submissions from the people with respect to constitutional office holders, specifically the tenure of office of the Attorney and Solicitor General.
Okay, I have a question to that. We implemented this particular provision in 2016. What disaster did we have? It's almost 10 years. What disaster or constraints have we experienced by virtue of those provisions? At what point did the system cease, or because the office of Attorney General or Solicitor General is vacant because of that? What problem did we have? In any case, when the National Assembly is dissolved, the president is simply a caretaker president. There are limitations as to what the president can do between the period of dissolution of the National Assembly until the next president is sworn in. He can't make major decisions during that period. Okay? He's simply on a caretaker basis.
The president has gone onto the floor of parliament, and others have exclaimed, concern over the issue of filing of fresh nominations after resignation, Article 52, sub-Article 6, and saying we could have a situation where 9 months there's no election in the country.
Again, it's another crazy proposition, right? It's never happened. It's never happened. We're just imagining problems. Now, anybody
can it not happen based on this provision?
First of all, has it happened in the last 10 years? It hasn't happened. Okay? But also, you're beginning to think...
Well, this kicked in, obviously, after the 2016.
Yes, 2016. It's now almost 10 years. We haven't had such a crisis. Okay? But you're also assuming that the people are robots. You're also assuming that people are not patriots, that they'll collapse the system. When you cannot imagine a problem in your head and make it a national disaster. You cannot imagine a disaster in your head and then translate it to the rest of the republic. No, the Constitution has served us well since 2016. There is absolutely nothing wrong with it. Like I have said, the challenge is to make sure that we enact legislation. The primary legislation that we should pass right now, my brother, is we need to empower the provinces that are generating wealth in this country to benefit from the wealth that is coming from their provinces. That is the primary objective. That is what most of the Zambians are crying for, is economic survival, not constitutional. No, there is nothing wrong with the Constitution. No average Zambian has ever demanded for amendment of the Constitution.
But history, as it has, and based on our legal system and our framework, this exercise has begun. The president, through the powers vested in him, has triggered this appointment of a committee. They will deliver, and it will go to Parliament. And unfortunately, it is the members of Parliament who decide on behalf of the 20 million Zambians in a so-called representative democracy, and it will pass at the whims of the politicians.
Well, I do hope it doesn't. I hope it doesn't. My prayer, my plea to the ministers, to the MPs, is this: put the country first. Put the country first. This exercise does not benefit the country in any way. In the same way that we oppose Bill 10, okay, the same arguments we advance against Bill 10, those same arguments are still valid. There is no need to amend the constitution. Now, if those MPs vote, they'll have betrayed the people that elected them. There is absolutely no reason whatsoever to amend this constitution. None whatsoever.
Finally, State Council, the President 3 weeks ago when he attended a UPN demobilization event at Mulungushi was very, very confident and clear in his statement when he said words or intelligence is getting on the ground is that he has already passed or won the election. The worry should be at MP level. He's so confident that he's delivered. But also with all these things happening and the number of people throwing themselves in the presidential ring or presidential hat, can we potentially see this election of 2026 springing up independent presidential candidates? State House again, we heard say our constitution does not allow for independent presidential candidates.
Well, the constitution does allow, okay? It does allow because, first of all, you can't force somebody to belong to a political party. Okay, it's his constitutional right. Okay, the Bill of Rights makes it very clear. I have the right to belong or not to belong to a political party of my choice. So therefore, you can't force me to be a member of a political party in order to contest for the presidency. I think Article 100 of the Constitution clearly sets out. Nowhere does it say that you have to belong to a political party. It doesn't say that. Okay? Every citizen is at liberty. That is why we say it's a duty, it's a service. If you think you can serve your country as a president, you should be able to do that. And that is if you can get 50 plus 1%, 50% plus 1, if you can.
And 100 supporters.
That's right, from every province, right? If you can do that, it's open to you. It's entirely up to you. But let me comment about these things. Where it says intelligence says is going to get problem is with the MPs. You can only say that if you have already rigged the election, okay? Because I don't know how anybody can even read the mind of the voters. It takes us back to President Lungu, the late President Lungu, who said, I'm going to beat, he was going to defeat his challenger by what, 500,000 votes, right? The outcome was different. I would simply ask the president to approach this issue with humility and show respect for the voters. If anything, the voters are far smarter than the politicians. The only problem is that politicians don't respect the voters. Okay, we have to wait. You can't even say that because I don't think that even our system works that way.
Voter registration has kicked off in some areas. We are seeing irregularities, low voter registration turnout. Again, the ruling party is saying if we see low voter registration turnout, it means people are satisfied with the status quo.
Well, I don't know about that, but it could be. I don't think I can't read anything into that. Okay, but it can also be interpreted otherwise. That people are basically frustrated. It's another option. But my plea to the Zambian is that registering is your voice. You have to get out there and vote, and first of all register. It's your constitutional right. It's not an obligation. It's not a choice. It's a duty. You have to register as a voter. Okay. At the end of the day, the dynamics are so different. We still have 9 months. Is it 9 months or 10 months before we cast the votes? A lot of things can happen. I always remember President Chilwa telling us to say, he used to tell us that, Valumendo, 24 hours in politics is too long. Anything can happen. So my plea to Zambians is don't lose hope. Go and register en masse. It is your constitutional duty to register as a voter. Casting the vote is another issue. Let's not talk about casting the vote. Right now the discussion should be about registering as a voter. That is the primary.
In conclusion, let me get back to the movement for national renewal.
Yes.
31st of December comes and you've got 1 million supporters.
Yes.
The end game is for a formation of a political movement, whether you're going to register one or jump onto an already existing one.
That's right.
You are ready to serve.
Yes.
Is John Sangwa going to be on the ballot as anything else other than president?
Well, I have made that clear. Okay, people, for example, my obligation is to the country. Okay, if there's anybody out there that I believe can do a better job, I'll support that person. It's not about me. It's about service. Okay, that is why I have not started like other, I have not formed a political party and described myself as president.
So what is your role in this movement? Mobilizer?
I'm simply mobilizing the thing. We're driving this particular process. Okay, and also the problem is that there's a tendency to fight over positions. Okay, I'm not into that. I think let's get the work done first. Let's get the 1 million. Then we'll decide what happens. Okay? Right now, we're still an nonpartisan umbrella. Anybody that buys in our vision and in our ideas is free to come to the table. Okay? And then after come 31st December, or even before, if we manage to get that target before, then we'll make a decision at that particular time. Okay, I'm not going to be consumed by titles, who is going to be there, who is going to be on the ballot. What is important is that when that time comes, for example, if the time comes, God willing, it takes us there, there's now time to put up who is going to be the running mate or the main candidate. It is about the people will decide.
Do you have a conviction or those intentions to feel Is your conviction talking to you that you can serve this country as president?
I've always, if you look at my initial statement, that was the promise. I didn't just wake up one morning to say I want to be this. No, I got representation from people both within and in the diaspora that have tracked down my commitment to the country, and they have said, why don't you serve? And I've said, yes, I can, but this is how we do it. I cannot do it alone. I cannot. I know other people have the ability to say they can fix it, but I don't have that ability. What I'm saying is that when we come together as Zambians, we hold hands, we can achieve anything and we can renew this country. That is my message. It's not about an individual. It is about a collective. It is about each and every Zambian. No Zambian, no single individual can fix the problems of this country. We all have to roll up our sleeves and start working for this country.
State Councillor John Sangwa, thank you so much for talking to me this evening.
Thank you for this opportunity.
There you have it. That wraps up Costa for this evening, touching on the movement for national renewal. 1 million citizens to rally by 31st of December 2025. Thereafter, a decision will be made. Let's watch the space. Thank you so much. Costa cross-examination is now adjourned.